As Russia's war on Ukraine raging on, the parents of a former Marine are scheduled to protest outside the White House today, demanding action from President Biden as their son reportedly remaining jailed in a Russian prison. National correspondent Logan Raddick, he's outside the Pentagon now. He's got your details. Logan, what's happening here?
Well, Sean, Trevor Reed has been in a Russian jail since August of 2019. His parents say he's resumed his hunger strike in a Russian prison after he went to a prison hospital after being exposed to somebody with tuberculosis, and they say that he was not tested before returning back to his cell. Now, Reed's, like I said, been in jail since 2019. He was in prison while visiting his girlfriend, and also he was in Russia to learn a foreign language as part of a degree requirement at the University of North Texas. Now, Texas Senator John Cornyn says the Biden administration must do more to get not only Reed out of Russia, but other American prisoners, including basketball star Brittany Griner. So there's been no response from the White House yet, and as this is all going on, Sean, the U.S. continues to supply aid to Ukraine, and right now the Pentagon tells me there's no plan to slow that down.
Obviously, we want to see this war end, but for as long as Ukraine and the Ukrainian armed forces need assistance, the United States is going to be there to help provide it.
So there's no timetable in terms of when the U.S. would possibly cut off aid to the Ukrainians, but also at the same time, there's no plan right now to get Trevor Reed out of Russia, at least one that's been made publicly. And again, growing pressure on the White House with his parents protesting outside today. Back to you.
Right. We'll see what happens there. National correspondent Logan Raddick live there at the Pentagon. Logan, thank you. Meanwhile, happening here, University of Virginia's newspaper's editorial board calling for the cancellation of Mike Pence's scheduled visit in April. The board is arguing that the former vice president has attacked the LGBTQ community and shown disregard for Black lives. Joining us now to discuss is entrepreneur and author of this forthcoming book, Nation of Victims, Vivek Ramaswamy. Good to see you, sir. Vivek, always good to see you, and thanks so much for coming on. It's interesting to get your perspective on this. I want just to get the viewers caught up on this, and I'll get your reaction. And this is a quote from the school's newspaper, by the way. So it says this, quote, Pence's visit as an opportunity to hear from and engage with leaders and experts from a wide variety of fields and perspectives. So-called perspectives should not be welcomed when they spread rhetoric that directly threatens the presence and lives of our community members. A quick snippet there from the college's paper. Your thoughts on this and the possibility of canceling the former VP's visit?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that universities have always been left of center in this country. Back when I went to Harvard and Yale a decade ago, those institutions were left of center as well. But at all of those institutions, something has changed over the last 10 years, where it's actually gone from embracing free speech and open debate of all perspectives and generally debating against conservative perspectives. And I think that's a great thing. Conservatives tend to get a better education when their views are tested. Something has now become fundamentally different, where in the name of diversity, the goal of these institutions has become to actually eliminate diversity of thought. In the name of inclusion, creating this new culture where certain points of view just aren't welcome. And so that's the difference between what I call lowercase d diversity, which refers to true diversity of thought, and capital D diversity, which actually refers to eliminating the very thing that it was supposed to safeguard. And the same thing goes for this new culture of so-called inclusion at universities as well. In the name of inclusion, what they actually mean is exclusion. And the worst of all is I think it is the students who pay tuition who lose in the end, because when they come out of their graduate programs or when they come out of their undergraduate programs, they have never had their views tested. And when their views are then tested on other matters ranging from business to science to human resources, when they graduate, they're unable to deal with that in the workplace. And I'm sorry to say, in my career in business, I've actually had the chance to see some of the bad consequences of that firsthand as the next generation of Americans begins to populate America's workforce.
When did this become, if you disagree, you get canceled? When did that happen? It used to be the intelligent way of going about things was to hear each other out, come to the conclusion, maybe you disagree, you can have an argument of thought, you can have an argument of opinion, but it doesn't seem to exist for conservatives. Pence is not the only one, by the way, that has been threatened with cancellation of speeches on college campuses.
Yeah, look, this is a long brewing trend. I mean, I actually talk about this in my last book, Woke Inc., and so it's not easily explained by one factor. But One of the factors that actually makes a difference is the rise in the weaponization of certain terms, like to be called a racist. I think there's no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist. But what the modern neo-progressive movement has done is they've changed race from being about your skin color to being about the content of your ideas. Ayanna Pressley says it well when she says that actually we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. But when being black goes from being about your skin color to being about your voice, then any disagreement with that voice automatically makes you racist. And as I said earlier, there is no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist. So it's that intellectual move that actually began in the universities to conflate your genetically inherited characteristics with the content of the ideas and opinions that you're supposed to have that then attaches labels to any form of disagreement. And those labels then become the mechanism for exerting this form of cultural tyranny, where this culture of fear that says that the worst thing you could possibly be is an ist, a misogynist, a racist, or whatever, that then silences people into dissent. So that's one of the many factors. There's not one single answer to it, but that's, I think, an important one.
If you can categorize, there are buckets, if you will. You can throw you in a bucket, and that's, there you are, these labels, and then you're essentially canceled. As simple as that, as you put it. Really quickly before you go, because this goes on this topic, Florida, DeSantis, the Parental Rights and Education Bill, better known as the Don't Say Gay Bill, got made fun of at the academies earlier. Disney, the largest employer in Florida, pushing back on Governor DeSantis, and essentially this has to do with kindergartners through third graders and not bringing up, sexual choices, if you will, preferences, if you will, in these classrooms. And now Disney is removing gender roles. Remember when they say, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, when you come in, now they've come up with something else, but there's no more boys and girls involved in this. Sorry, Pinocchio. Your thoughts on this?
Look, say what you will about the statute. I think there's room for disagreement, like there is on any law where citizens on both sides of that debate can have that debate in the open. My main objection to this was Disney's engagement in it. Disney should not be lecturing state officials on what first graders are supposed to learn about sexual orientation. That is not what companies should do. And I would like to remind the left that actually it was the left that even 10 years ago that was skeptical of corporate interference in politics. That's why most liberals hated Citizens United in 2010. Now this new trend of so-called stakeholder capitalism is really Citizens United on steroids, where the people of this country and of our states are passing laws that reflect their democratic will. And you know what? Not all of those laws are necessarily going to be good. No law ever is perfect. You can debate that, and you can change the law, and you can change the people who you elect into office. But what they're now doing is, since they didn't like corporate power, they decided that we're actually going to use corporate power to substitute for the democratic process to really enforce our agenda using market force. And I think that creates a new merger between state power and corporate power that's far more dangerous than either one alone. That's what we're seeing.
I think they're using now dreamers of all ages. Hello, everyone. Dreamers of all ages. They've completely changed how they welcome boys and girls into their park. Vivek Ramaswamy, always good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.